Welcome, welcome everyone. How's everyone doing? Louis, how are you? How are you?
Hey, I am super well, Donna. It's good to be back. I've been absent for a minute, right? But it's all good. We've been on a real busy streak, and when you get those streak in business, it's a good thing. You just go with the flow, and it's all good. We're glad to be back, and we want to welcome all our listeners from across the CRRFM network, across the world. And of course, this is another edition of Caribbean Diaspora Vibes. We're going to talk about mental health and all that good stuff.
Yeah, we sure
Great.
are. I'm actually trying to um get us onto our other pages right now. If you go ahead and get started,
Yeah,
Louis, and I'm
yes,
gonna see.
yes, yes, yes. So we have this evening with us, and the weather is, before I get in there, beautiful weather on the outside. We broadcast out of Kissimmee, a little bit cloud evening, and so all of you in Central Florida is doing well. And from those of you listening across the world, welcome to CRRFM. This evening we have in our panel, we have Brother Sterling, 2 yardy, 4 yardy this evening. We have Brother Sterling, we want to welcome. This is about mental health for men. And and we also have Christopher as well. Welcome, gentlemen, to this edition of Caribbean Diaspora Vibes. It's good to have you guys.
Certain a pleasure, an honor to be here with you as well tonight.
Yes, indeed. It's definitely an honor. Thank you for having me.
Irie. Donna Wagwan, it's good to see you.
Yeah,
You've been busy
and
yourself.
yeah, we are actually just trying to get everything set up on our end here, trying to make it public. You know, Facebook always likes to change things around every so often. Okay, I think we are it just has it as friends and
Mhm.
not let's see if I can share it. I think now I can probably share it to Caribbean Rhythms Radio Network and sharing it to Caribbean American Diaspora. All right, so people on those pages should be able to see it now. Yeah, sorry about that.
Yes,
Facebook
yes.
changes sometimes, and even though you say to go public with it goes as just limited with friends, and so I had to work on that. You see all the things I have to juggle behind.
Yes, I see that. I see that. And you just finished your 5K walk last week too.
Last
You've been
Saturday
busy.
we had an
Yeah.
amazing time, and Mr. Jevaughn was there, Christopher couldn't make it, but Jevaughn was there, teaching us all how to stretch properly, and it was a wonderful, wonderful walk.
Just
Wonderful
awesome.
fundraiser.
Yes, very cool. Very cool. I went down to a bus ride at the beach last week, Saturday, with the group from Clarita's house. That young lady from Jamaica and the gentleman from Trinidad that give away and take care of all the needy and the people in the Central Florida, feeding them with good food. So it was a celebration with the volunteers. So it was a good getaway last Saturday for that.
Man,
So
we need that. We need that. So you see that we kind of carved out June to be all about men, right? The whole year, poor Louis has to sit with women empowerment, women this, women.
yes.
It's all good. But so we just wanted to highlight our men in all the different areas. We wanted them to come in and speak on, mental health, on wellness, fitness, etc. Whatever it is, talk about their business, promote, and we're going to be doing a lot more business promotion on our program because we want to see those professionals, right? What they're doing in the community. So our focus for Caribbean American Diaspora is health, wealth. You need the two of them, right? You need the fitness and the health, but you also need the money,
Yes, yeah, that's for sure.
right? And we need the business, we need the exposure, etc. And then that makes the happiness, right? So we have two amazing men here tonight. We're going to start out with Jevaughn, and we want to just hear a little bit about who you are. Let's say we have like 20 minutes that we can do on each guest, and then we'll just come back, then we'll have questions and input and so forth, or but tell us a little bit about who you are, Jevaughn, and then what is your tip or whatever you want to share to men that are listening, men and women, young men also, that can impact their lives.
Yeah, Donna, I really appreciate the chance to spend time with you and the audience to talk about the topics that are near and dear to men. Hopefully, we just don't need 1 month to talk about the issues around men. I think being better men for our communities is something to be celebrated. So, um, thank you for the opportunity. I am Jevaughn Sterling. I hail from Montego Bay, Jamaica, a small community called West Green, near Catherine Hall, about 2 hours, 2 miles from the airport. And I grew up in Montego Bay until I was 17 years old. During that time, I was an avid soccer player, had the opportunity to represent Jamaica at a very early age. At an early age of 15, I continued playing football, and it won me a scholarship to attend Howard University, where I still competed with the Jamaica team through the France '98 World Cup campaign. I was part of that squad, but I left that squad and picked up a full ride to do my MBA at Howard University. So that created a different path towards being more of a business professional. I've been in banking for the last 22 years, but overall 27 years in financial services. I'm married to a lovely Jamaican who hails from Mandeville. Her name is Tanya. And I have 3 kids. We have 3 kids together. And the youngest is 17. We have a boy, 28, a daughter, 21, and my youngest is 17. So my days are filled with just trying to be present. I travel quite a bit for work. So when I'm here, I try to be very involved and engaged with what's taking place. I like hobbies. A few hobbies of mine are obviously listening to music. In a former life, I wanted to be a DJ, but wiser minds prevailed, I guess. And then, I enjoy playing golf. I can't play as much soccer as I used to because of all these various injuries that ended my career, and trying to stay, pain-free has been sort of a journey for me over the last 10 years. So that's about me.
So you played soccer.
Yeah, big time.
Well,
Congratulations,
let me correct
brother.
myself. Let me correct myself, since we're in proper company. I played football.
There you go. There you go. There you go. There you go. And congratulations for being on that French squad. And that was when we went to the World Cup in France. Yeah. And what position were you playing at that time, Brother Sterling?
Well, just to back up a little bit, I left to go pick up my MBA before the squad qualified to go to France. So I was a goalkeeper. I would have been a backup behind Warren Barrett,
Okay.
who eventually played in the World Cup.
Yeah.
So I watched those guys participate in the World Cup qualifiers, and
Yes.
that was a very proud moment in our history.
Yeah, very good. Congratulations. It's good to have you, and we like to see when our people excel to the highest level of their potential, and I think you have achieved that, huh?
Well, we never stop growing, but it's a
Yes.
journey. We're trying to
Amen.
focus on being present and enjoying the ride.
Yeah, man.
Amen to that.
So what do you want to share on, I think you wanted to do more wellness or some tips for mental health and wellness?
Yeah, when I reach out to you, Donna, I just thought the topics around men's health need to be discussed, not only in the context of being a man, but just human beings in general. We have a goal for for leading more healthy lives. But how do we exactly do that? My own personal health journey, I've watched myself, evolve as I go through different stages of life. In my early teens, I was a super athlete and, would overtrain to, in advance to make sure we have good performance. But, as you go through your 20s and 30s, you're living off the health, and you sort of take some things for granted. And when 40 rolls around, you notice changes in your body, changes in your health. And so for me, the last 10 years has been a rediscovery. And, I've read quite a bit on the topic of health. So today I'd like to talk about health. Um,
We just lost you. We lost your video, your sound, Jevaughn.
All right, as we continue right here, we are in tune. You're in tune to CRRFM, and we are talking about men's health this evening. We have Jevaughn Sterling, and of course, we'll be right back because he just can we hear him?
We're not hearing you.
Okay.
He's saying a lot of amazing things, but
Yeah, yeah,
let me see.
yes. All right. In the meantime, we try to catch up with Brother Jevaughn. We lost his audio. Let's see if we
Let me
can get
try to
that back.
text him
Yeah.
and
Yes. We want to you want to try and go ahead and have Christopher get started and come
yeah,
back.
let me.
Christopher, can we hear you?
I'm here.
Yes.
Can you
Yes.
hear me okay?
Yeah. Go ahead and introduce yourself until we fix that situation with Brother
Mm,
Sterling. Okay. Go ahead.
No problem at all. Well, my name is Christopher Campbell, and well, let me address the men's health and fitness, wealth, all of that. My take on that topic is to I guess follow along in the footsteps of Jevaughn would be complete. A man have to be complete. And in today's society, I do believe there's too much misdirection of what success is. It's too often placed on financials, how much money, how wealthy you are, or maybe some status in that realm. And I think what happens is that the cornerstone or the foundation of what makes a man is not financial resources or money, because the man makes the money doesn't make the man. And today I'm realizing that too, like for instance, as example, a lot of athletes today, if they aspire to make it to the major leagues or the professional leagues, if they don't make it, they tend to don't have a real plan afterwards. They somewhat lose their way.
Mhm.
And in that sense, they're not complete academically or career-wise, professionally, otherwise. um, with anything, whether it's like outside of sports, a professional career, or in sports, a professional career, no matter who you are, male, female, there's going to be a level of adversity, and sometimes it comes in spurts or different seasons. But one way or the other, adversity is going to come along. And if a person, in this case, a man, if he's not complete spiritually, mentally, physically, academically, it's going to be a very difficult task to win. And I think that is not being harnessed enough today. And we've heard plenty of mental health being an issue.
Mhm.
Um, and it's all realms. This has happened. Back in the financial crisis, you hear about people that maybe had 100 million and they lost some of their wealth. Now, instead of having 100 million, they may be down to 10 million. And all of a sudden they felt they didn't have any value and they would be jumping off a building and stuff like that. right? So really and truly, I do believe that it's important for men in particular, since we are looked at as the provider, the protector, to do a lot more. And if that's not being done, then it's what's your worth, what's your value, what's your purpose? So the system somewhat, or the society somewhat, place a greater value on what can you produce, what can you make. In some cases, not enough value or attention is placed on the dignity of a person or on a man. And I think that's what's, losing in the aspect of the health, the mental health, or the spiritual realm of a man being complete. So oftentimes we talk about complete players, whether it's a basketball player, football players, this person complete in all of their athletic attributes. So similarly, it's important for a man before he even gets into a career to be a complete individual. Meaning, can he, does he know how to cook? Basically, can he cook for himself? If he's going to be a father one day, does he know the basics about taking care of a child, or you know being a partner to a wife? All of that stuff comes into play. So these are the things I'd love to address some more later on. But as far as addressing the health, the wealth, and the physical aspect or fitness, I think it's all important, and they all have to balance out each other. We all have to live a balanced life. Sometimes if you cook too much,
No,
yes.
sorry about that. No, I was gonna say before we get into that, tell us a little bit about yourself. We didn't get to, people didn't get to know who Chris is.
Okay. Yeah.
Chris, before you even do that, just do a
Yeah,
mic check. Jevaughn, can you do a mic check?
yeah, there we go.
Sure.
Oh, there you go,
Test,
man.
test. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, you're back. All right, Christopher, go ahead.
All right. So Jevaughn, sorry to interrupt you and take over your absence. But so yeah, I'm Christopher Campbell. I'm currently the CEO for King Seasonings. We manufacture and distribute seasonings, sauces, particularly jerk seasoning and barbecue sauces. So we are adding an array of other seasoning, such as curry, a lot of dry seasoning, the basic seasonings, garlic, black pepper, onion powder, all that stuff. But we have primarily focused our initiatives on supplying restaurants and wholesalers. We started with the initial goal was to go into the supermarkets like Walmart, Publix, and then we diverted to where we were getting the greatest response or feedback, which was working directly with the restaurants and the wholesalers. So that area of business has been our cash cow since the past, I would say, 5 years, and we've been focused on growing in that area. We we are based in two places. We have two locations in Florida, in Miramar and also in Orlando. And we do distribute or ship to different states. We ship our products as far as Los Angeles, Vegas, New York, Chicago. Another big market for us is Atlanta, so we're pretty big in Atlanta as well. And just within the past year and a half, we've been doing international shipping as well. So that's an exciting new
All right.
venture for us, and we're looking to grow more there. Previously, I was also in the banking or the finance sector for, I would probably say, about 15 or 17 years. And during my college years, high school years, I competed in track and field and martial arts. So um,
Boy, I can't touch you.
um,
I
it,
hear you, man.
one by himself, no, but many have a chance.
I hear you. I
Yeah,
hear you.
but
Awesome.
that was a few years ago, and I actually worked my way up in the state of Florida to compete in the Olympics in Taekwondo. I forgot, this was back in 2006. when they were doing the camps to qualify and stuff like that. Unfortunately, I got injured. So right before they were selecting the teams from each state within the weight classes to go to Colorado to train, I got injured, and that pretty much ended that journey. Yeah, I think the hardest part about that journey was more heartbreaking than the actual injury itself. But the experience was definitely was a priceless experience. I enjoyed the journey, getting to that level, and the people I trained with. It was an awesome experience.
Awesome. All right. Want to welcome back, brother Sterling. We were you were also talking about the actual different things about the mental health for men. You can get back where you started, my brother, where you left off. Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. I hope you're hearing me clearly now. Not sure what
Yes.
happened there on the audio, but yeah, I would like to talk about mental health when you think about it in terms of um, holistically, not just what you are physically, but mentally. And starting with the mental health, for me, I've always viewed my mental health status through the prism of my faith, right? And for me, what I've seen is the ability to change your mindset, to renew your mind, the ability to stay positive, the ability to trust in when there's times of uncertainty. Those things can really allow you to lay down your burdens because Jesus has already paid the price for us, and so for me, I can rest a little bit more easily at night. Not that everything's around me is perfect, but I'm able to really change my mindset, and that has a significant impact on the stress that would ordinarily build up over the course of a day, right? And mental health, like I said, there's a physical component to it as well. It's the exercise. It's ensuring that you're maintaining an optimal level. It's recommended that you have at least 30 minutes of exercise per day. Some people exceed that. That's great, but walking is a very, very therapeutic activity that can constitute exercise. And just working um, in a coordinated fashion, the next thing you would think about is your diet. How am I making the best choices among the different foods that I have? And the diet has such a big impact. And when you think about the biggest impact is cholesterol, right? Um, it's just very common around our culture to hear people have cholesterol and high blood pressure, right? And you wonder why that is. You go back to our diet, and our diet's very rich in starchy foods and meats, and the way we ate when we were younger. Sometimes we don't change the way we eat as your body is unable to process foods. So it's very important that the way you eat changes over your life cycle. And I've read where scientists say you should eat your rainbow. So your plate should have so many colors, the foods on it that should represent so many different colors. It looks like a rainbow. So for that to happen, you have to have more than starches. You have to have vegetables. You have to have different types of vegetables, different types of color, and things of that nature. So um, you have to really think about mental health holistically, not just in terms of how you control your mind, but also how do you control and take care of your body.
Awesome. Awesome. You know, Chris also mentioned a few important items that we men have to be complete as well in regards to being mentally stable. My question to both of you, and each of you can answer accordingly. Do you guys think this is what I noticed? I noticed that a lot of our men, especially in business, do not exercise integrity um, in the way we operate with one another. Do you think Also, and you could also describe it as deceitfulness as well. You could also describe it as laziness as well. Do you guys think, what's your opinion? Are these things considered part of mental health, or isn't these things considered part of mental health when you can't trust your brother, to do transaction in business, or not even necessarily in business, but in your personal life? A lot of us are not, um, don't deal straight with each other. Isn't that a form of mental health?
I could argue that it's a byproduct of mental health, right? If you are practicing holistic um, practices around your faith,
Mhm.
then you're going to be naturally convicted when you go to the workplace, and you are not showing up in the same way that you should be,
Right.
as when you go to church, right? And so to live out your faith is important, not just at home, but in the workplace. And oftentimes, persons might be struggling with various aspects of their lives, and the way they show up in the workplace is unfortunate at times, and that's how they're judged or they're perceived, is by their actions in the workplace, which may not be entirely who their characters are, but they are perhaps dealing with some external factors. And I think it's important that persons recognize that they can get help for those things, to start getting on the track of mentally healthy, that produces the right types of professional behavior in the workplace, at home, and when no one's looking.
Agree, agree.
Practice the faith, you say.
Huh?
No, practice the
The
faith.
faith, the faith. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, walk the walk, talk the talk.
Exactly. Agree.
Um, you know, when it comes to food, the colors that Jevaughn was talking about, yeah, we usually have rice.
That
If
now,
we have dasheen, dumpling, I'm not
I'm
seeing
sure
any
you're right.
color,
True
no
colors are
colors
just,
yet.
wow. Yeah, that's
Only
true.
the peas, only the
Yeah.
peas and the rice.
Maybe the red potato, the red potato.
But there's a lot to that doing, because even within the starches, there's certain types of starches that tend to have a better impact on your health. For example,
Mhm.
um, many of us are accustomed to the French fries and the potato, right? But in that species of foods, you can also find a sweet potato, which has significantly better health benefits than, let's say, the regular Irish potato. There are also purple colored, and red colored potatoes that bring other health benefits. So you can start to look around your existing, kitchen or existing grocery store, and try to find, just varieties of colors, because you'll be able to perhaps, derive more health benefits out of, eating more colorful foods.
Red cabbage, or is it purple cabbage?
Yeah,
Right.
Purple
purple carrot.
carrot, right? And you have
Mhm.
purple onions, right?
Yes, yes, yes,
Um,
yes.
those factors, so if you just simply look, you
Fruits
don't
and
have to
all those
do.
things. Good stuff.
And fruits, exactly. We have an abundance of fruits. And starting with, I think persons are generally aware of what they should be doing to take care of themselves. What I
Mhm.
find the most challenging is determining exactly how to do it, how to fit it into your day-to-day lifestyle. Someone who is, you know, working and supporting a family, head of household, um, and they have children or active, it becomes very challenging. It's very easy to just stop and pick up something at the fast food restaurant versus, pre pre-planning out your meals and having meal prepped. So you have to think about those factors as well. And I think that, more practical ways of how to implement these techniques in your lifestyle would benefit persons. And, it'll be different for different people. As age, your body can't process certain types of uh, foods, like certain types of meats or dairy, but you still need protein. So you have to look to different sources of protein that may be easier on your digestive system and also allow you to extract some longer term health benefits.
Christopher, what are your tips on food and generally? Because you both are fitness buffs. So, and you both mentioned as you get older, things kind of what you used to eat before and the way you used to eat has to change. So, being Caribbean and especially Jamaican, like, how do you adapt?
Well, easy. It's really not hard. Um, Enjoy what you eat.
Hmm.
That's really it. Enjoy what you eat, and what I mean by that is, if you're living a balanced lifestyle, like we're talking about fitness here, if you're eating too much all the time, then okay, let's compare a child. A child growing up eating ice cream, drinking sodas, what are they doing half of the other time? Running, jumping. As parents, plenty of times you may find yourself, stop running in the house, stop jumping, stop doing that, go to sleep, stop moving. There's a lot of, we're trying to slow them down. Look at the lifestyle of most adults. Instead of being as active, they sit, work, sit for 8 hours, 12 hours, but they may drink and eat, and the energy, food is fuel. Food is fuel. If you're burning it properly, it doesn't really cause a damage unless you're eating something that is just really not good. As an example, when Usain Bolt and a lot of the other athletes went to China, went to Beijing for the Olympics, um, the menu in a lot of the Chinese local restaurants were quite different from what Caribbean the Caribbean menu is accustomed to. They had squids, they had um, I would say certain bugs that were on the menu, like giant, like really big like bugs, right? And some of the other stuff that they get from the ocean or whatever, they couldn't tell, crustaceans, they couldn't tell what it is. So a lot of the athletes, the American athletes as well, for fear of they didn't want to interfere with their performance or make them sick, they would not eat it. Instead, they went to the McDonald's and they would eat nuggets, burgers, and fries, something they recognize and they can tolerate. But when they went out, keep in mind, at that same Olympics, Usain also made a record. But they were eating McDonald's, and I'm not promoting McDonald's. I'm not promoting eating fast food by any means. But this is to bring it back that we have a responsibility to ourselves to be balanced in life. The level of calories that you burn as an athlete, as those professional athletes are doing, if they're working out 4 hours, Jevaughn mentioned even averaging 30 minutes a day. That's the minimal you can do to maintain your heart. The minimal you can do. But if you're able to do 2 hours a day, the way I see it, if you have time to eat, if you really have time to eat, you definitely have time to exercise. So if you have time to eat, sit for 20 minutes or 30 minutes to eat breakfast, 20 to 30 minutes to eat lunch, 40 minutes, an hour to eat dinner, then why can't you put that same amount of time in working out? So if you're being fair to yourself and honest with yourself, then you have to live a balanced life. If you want to sleep 8 hours, that's what they recommend. Sleep 6 to 8 hours a night, and it's healthy for you. and then we balance it by working 6 to 8 hours a day. So notice our work life is almost balanced with our rest time. So if there's 24 hours in the day, we work 8 hours on average, sleep 8 hours on average. What are we doing with the rest of the time, the other 8 hours?
Mm-hmm.
So if we were to, we plan our schedules as, okay, I'm going to go to run this errand. I'm going to do this report in this amount of time in this time block. I'm going to go to the movies. I'm going to go on vacation. Why aren't we prioritizing our health? Or just like we plan, okay, you want to buy a house. You may sacrifice for a year or two to save up the down payment. And you may realize, you know what, we can go to Starbucks less. We may not go on a vacation this year because we're saving to buy a house. The same priority or the same discipline is required in just maintaining your health and your happiness, your wellness. And I do want to touch on something Lewis said earlier, which is important, about mental health being, how does it affect the dignity of a person, the work ethics of a person, if you can rely on someone or the loyalty, all of that stuff does play out. And there's a cause and effect in everything. That's how I see life, cause and effect. If something is off in somebody's life, it's not balanced, then it's for sure, it's going to domino effect into other areas of that person's life, including professional. And we've probably all heard stories or read about things like this. If someone's going through a divorce, how does that person show up to work? They still have to do their job professionally. So there's a problem in society, especially with Black men. There's a high level of expectation for us to perform and not complain. Perform and not have a weakness, not show a weakness. So what tends to happen is that we can be going through some serious things, but we may not trust someone to talk about it, or we may not have the person to talk about it because you're not supposed to show weakness. Right? So many people that do have mental health issues, is not so much mental health is the core problem. Mental health happened to be the result. So you're dealing with something heavy, but then that heavy topic forms an emotional imbalance. They go to work or they go along their peers or around their family members and they have to pretend. How often you ask someone, hey, how are you doing? And automatically, okay. Most people automatically, the first thing they say is okay.
It's okay. Yeah. That is true.
And half of the time it's not true.
So that turns, Chris, that also now turns into a lie.
It is.
And the fact that you're mentally unstable or you're not to where you're supposed to be, even as you mentioned men going through divorce. When a man and a woman separated, it affects us men more than the woman, you know.
Oh, I totally agree. But here's something to consider. The lie is not a blatant lie. This is what's missed. The lie is survival instincts.
But it's still a lie. Whichever way you want to spin it, it still comes out. And we're talking about the mental state now of the man, whichever situation he might find himself in. Because
so here's an example, Louis.
Yeah.
Right. And audience, here's another example, right? And I'm just putting it out there. Now, this one is like way out there because, again, two things in our society, particularly with Black men. Black men have a high level of prostate and colon cancer, higher than any other race. And why is that? It's one of the easiest things to catch in the early stages, but in our culture, we don't get that check for a reason. So understand that it's again, it goes back to the cause and effect, goes back to ultimately an expectation that is placed on men, and the men having a level of pride and ego.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
But
that is true. But I think, Chris, and I agree with you.
mhm,
But let's add the fact that we are not educated properly in regards, especially
100,
those things.
Yeah.
We
So
lack of
no,
education.
that is so much truth in that, because that goes back, not the lack of education and lack of wisdom in our community doesn't go back one generation. It goes back minimum
mhm.
10 generations.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
So,
Let's hear Brother Sterling thought on the matter. Brother Sterling, come on in.
That you asked the question of the topic that was on my mind. It's I recall, you know, seeing my father as a provider, but when I look around society, there was not a lot of awareness at the time. We're talking about the late 70s, early 80s, about, what men need to be doing to take care of their health and encouraging exercise among, other factors such as dieting. All right. So there's been, to Chris's point, several generations of not having enough education and awareness,
Mhm.
right? That results in, certain generations of persons aren't able to mentally adapt. Now that they've been exposed, okay, they understand that walking is good for them. They understand that eating certain foods will increase their longevity, but it's not part of their norm. And you said something a while ago, Chris, which I resonate with. The prostate test, it's again not part of our norm because it's associated with other negative factors, right?
right.
That are more
Mhm.
societal than health related. And so in addition to that test not being done, a colonoscopy is not being done,
Right.
right? I know elderly persons in their 70s and 80s who've never had a colonoscopy.
A
In
lot
fact,
of
I
us.
don't know that I don't know that that is a common practice, in the healthcare system, right? And that is such a critical time to be able to assess, your colon health, because it is susceptible to, tumors. It's susceptible to um,
Your entire
other
body.
ill.
Yeah,
Yeah,
other
and
things in the body.
and and I want to talk about the gut for a moment, because this is another thing that, is kind of taboo to talk about, right? But what does your biome consist of? When you think about your gut is contains a lot of bacteria, good bacteria, bad bacteria that's necessary to break down what goes into the body, right? But many of us, we will struggle with flatulence, we'll struggle with irregular bowel movements and things of the nature. And some we struggle with constipation too, right? But the only time we really address it is when it's, oh boy, it's food poisoning, but there's not an ongoing awareness that, you know, we lack certain, you lack certain enzymes and bacteria in your body. That is the reason why you cannot break down milk, right? And that happens for so many um, to so many people, uh, across a variety of other illnesses. So there's not an awareness of how that works, and how taking, a heightened awareness about constipation and things and your gut health, how that affects your overall mental health. Because scientists will tell you that 80% of the signals are from your gut to your brain, right? And
Mhm.
so the gut is being regarded now as the next brain.
Yeah.
And there's so much more
That's
to
a true brain, my
that.
brother.
Hmm.
Because if you ever notice, whenever you're nervous, it's like your stomach, you know?
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You get the
Wow.
butterflies, and even to go as far as saying, in in kind of social circles, if somebody say, "Boy, you're not no guts," they're generally saying that you're not courageous, right?
Yes,
And you
yes,
would
yes.
think of courage as being a state of mind, but it's really
It's in the gut. It's from the
a
guts.
state of the gut. Do you have a strong enough gut to tell your brain that it needs to be, it needs to take charge?
Yes, yes. Let's go back to us as a Jamaican. You know, do you think, going back, we, some of us here are, our understanding is a little bit different because we're in a different society. But if you go back home right now, and from the time that I am growing up, we look on mental illness totally different. There are so many different things wrong with people, but we Jamaican, the moment we see a little slowness in you, we put you aside. We totally put you aside. Is that something that we need to have a discussion about? Because once you have a little slowness, we call you madman or madwoman. We
Mm,
have that thing that we just ash with people who are not a hundred
Hmm.
percent as you are. And that seems to take a real negative part play in that person individual, because they're not accepted as we are anymore. Once we start labeling them and say, why you're a madman or you're a madwoman, and we see that trend, it makes that person less than what they are. What is your guys' thought on that? We have about 10 minutes to wrap up, but what's your thought on that situation? We Jamaican, we're really rough on with one another down there.
It's there's a lot of validity to that. I was fortunate that I attended Catherine Hall Primary School when it first opened in the 70s, and it actually had a school for special education, and it continues to have that school for special education. And there was an awareness among um, members of the community that people who are different, should still be accepted. However, I will say that it's also true that our our society doesn't have many options for them once they are through with the public education system, right? How do they get employment? How do they have transportation? How can they become self-sufficient, or with minimal supervision, they can have productive lives, right? And it some of them become marginalized by communities for simply just not taking enough time to understand that what could be diagnosed as autism is no longer, it's not a death sentence, or it's not stuck in a life of no future. You're seeing early intervention techniques are able to and bring out amazing abilities that can be used in workplaces, it can be used in society, and that's something, that's one example of the need for more education, for these topics to be socialized and spoken about as part of everyday life, to ensure that there are solutions that can be made available to these individuals, so they don't just become wardens of the state when their loved ones are no longer able to take care of them.
I
Yeah.
as we talk about culture, um, we're seeing on TikTok, IG, the trauma of Caribbean children, right? By Caribbean parents. So a lot of it is funny, right? Because we know we have a way of how we deal with, and we remember that we got dealt that way, but this generation, they don't understand that hard talking to the person. They don't understand it. They are traumatized and they are recording it and putting it out there. There's one video out, and it was a Jamaican mom, and she's I guess hitting the daughter and cussing her out and wet up the bed and all kind of stuff, right? We don't know the full story, but we and that we definitely have to do a show on that because the culture is just becoming, as these children are doing their recording and the skits and everything. Wow, we probably all needed some kind of therapy. We grew up in some harsh living. We know we were loved, and I think our skin is a little thicker, but these little ones, these younger set, they can't manage.
They're fragile.
Yes. And
Very-
they're putting it out there and then we're seeing, I'm like, Jesus.
You know, you bring up a very good point, and I think there's multiple dimensions to this. I think that one, the parenting style of many Jamaicans were basically adopted from previous generations, right? That's how they saw, um, you know, discipline in the household. And if you think back to even further beyond just your immediate parents and think back to our ancestors, right? You know, the whipping, the lashing, sparing, spare the rod and spoil the child, that whole thought process was really baked into our culture very strongly. And what we're seeing manifesting now on TikTok was always there. Now you have social media, but you also realize that there were some very traumatic sides to that. And people who lived in the households who were, um, subject to corporal punishment, and even in schools when schools could do it. I remember I was caught playing football and in the classroom, and I was sent to the principal office, and he didn't care that I was a football player. Um, I got whipped, and I was probably 15 at the time. But that culture, right? I think you're seeing it now. It's always been there, and I think we have to be careful not to say that all that was acceptable because I went through it. You should be able to go through it and start judging the younger generation as being fragile. Because the truth is, that parenting style isn't universally recommended as the best parenting style, for raising his kids. There are other ways, and having raised American-born children, um, myself, I had to I recognized I had to change the whole parenting style, my whole concept of discipline and duties and all that, and raising a child and punishing them, and I had to change dramatically. And so we're not all beyond change, right? Change, I think, is good. I think that it's essential that, again, we talk about, a man being able to set the example for, faith in his household, and ensuring that you're raising your children, the way that they're supposed to, and you're also showing affection to your wife, and you're starting modeling behaviors that they're going to see and think that's part of the norm that they can pass on to their families. And so you break the cycle of that repressive behavior that we were
Right.
subject to from generations, and we start to renew ourselves, renew our minds, and start to really create new healthy habits.
Yes. Last words, Christopher?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I agree that Donna, you said it best that we definitely have to do a segment on this. This is a huge topic. So, but it does come down to a lot of cultural aspects. As Jevaughn said, that biblical quote of, spare the rod, spoil the child. I do believe in that. And again, it comes down to balance.
Right.
If you don't discipline a child, discipline is different from abuse.
Right.
Let's
Mhm.
let's make that clear. Because
Sure.
disciplining a child does not mean you're beating that child, or you can simply remove a privilege.
Hmm.
You're not going to prom, you're not going to homecoming, you're not going to play sports, So
Mm-hmm.
there's a variety of ways you can discipline a child to walk the proper route, to stay on the right path. And that's
Mm-hmm.
important. It's better to what's that term that they said it's harder to curve the tree when it's grown than when it's already grown than when it's a small um branch.
Curve it from early.
Yeah, exactly.
Bend
So
the tree. Bend the tree from early.
exactly. So if you have a child that have a tendency of stealing, hanging around the wrong crowd, it is it is far better you punish that child ahead of time, because once they get into the state hands, they're going to be handled worse. So if they go to juvenile detention or go to prison, a lot of parents not looking at that like, you know what, maybe I shouldn't have given that child everything. Maybe I needed to discipline that child and withhold some things. There's nothing wrong with saying no. In today's society, even saying no or speaking sternly can be considered verbal abuse or abuse. In some states that have legalized even changing the sex of a child, if the parent refers to that child as, let's say it's a girl that wants to be a boy.
And that's a different topic, right? A topic for another
But
day.
hear this. If the parent responds to the child as still a she or a her, in some states legally it's considered abuse.
Wow.
So again, there's a division that always have to be clarified of abuse versus discipline, because they're not one and the same. So it is a big topic, and does this deserve its own. But again, I think it's something culturally that some people are going overboard with
Yeah.
it in the realm of abuse and not just discipline. Whatever you do at all time, if it doesn't reinforce this love, then it's not the right way.
Mm-hmm.
I'll leave it there.
Yes, thank you. I know, Louis, you have to jump off, but we definitely need to have a segment because on discipline and all of that with families, because it really, I think a lot of us or probably have some counseling or something that we have to do, whether it's meditation, prayer, something, so that we could then be better parents for our children. Louis?
Yeah, I think both gentlemen touch on some great topic, some great point this evening in regards to this subject, Donna. Jevaughn mentioned in his presentation faith, and making sure that we are on that path. Chris also mentioned being balanced and complete. And so those are some things we talk about integrity for men and women as well, but especially for men since the subject is for men. So we definitely need to continue this type of talk. We also talk about education. That we can't go forward and we can't do this topic without mentioning education, because that's one of the key factor of all of these things that we're talking about. Well presented, and we thank you guys for being a part of this discussion this evening.
Thank you for having
Thank
us.
you. And I know Louis has to jump off, but
Yes.
Christopher, go ahead and show us again your seasoning.
Well, this is the
Oh,
jerk
wait,
season.
just quick sec. Louis, do you have a few seconds
Yeah,
or?
yes. Yeah, I got to jump off. We have Soccer Edge Ball Talk coming up with Christopher
Okay.
Graham. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Donna. We'll catch up next week at the same time.
Yeah, man.
Chris and Jevaughn, have a great evening. God bless you.
Do the
And keep
same.
it back right here on Caribbean Rhythms Radio Network. Of course,
All the
as we
best, Louis.
continue, you are live.
Christopher?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, so go ahead and tell us again about your business, the
Okay,
seasoning.
so this is one of our most popular product, King's Jerk seasoning. So this is the spicy one. We have the spicy and the mild. It's all natural ingredients, so there's no artificial preservatives. There's no gluten. It's low in sodium. It is going, basically along the lines of what we've been discussing, eating healthy. And that is the inspiration behind us, this particular recipe. if when we're asked, well, what's the difference between this jerk seasoning and all the other ones that's on the shelf, or this one is so different. And I'm not just saying that because my company makes it, but it's developed in a way that it is all natural ingredients, meaning we do not use the dehydrated herbs and spices that's used in many others. So in ours, we have found a processing way to use the fresh peppers, the fresh onions, and all of that, and encapsulate it in a bottle with all the other great flavors, without having an enormous amount of sodium or an enormous amount of vinegar that it just overpowers it to the user would have to then add a lot of the fresh ingredients to bring back the true flavor. The true flavor is already here. The only thing, if you want to add while using it, you can add seasoning salt or regular salt to your liking if you feel you need more seasoning, more salt. But otherwise, this is a complete recipe that you can use right out of the bottle. When I say right out of the bottle, you can put this on burgers. You can put this on salmon. You can also marinate whatever meat with it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you can use it as a marinade, or you can use it as a paste afterwards, like how you would put maybe mayonnaise or something on bread. Mm-hmm. And it comes out with the same great flavor.
Can people find it?
Of course they can find it. I would not keep it away for just myself, Donna. Of course I'm making it so easy that
What can we find it?
If they go on our website at kings-seasonings.com, okay, you'll find it there in a variety of size options. So this is one of the smaller, the 10 ounce is one of the smaller units we have. We also have the 16 ounce. And then we offer the buckets for the restaurants, the 1 gallon and the 5 gallon buckets as well. So we've done quite a bit of that, and we've added more products. So now we even have the pineapple jerk barbecue sauce, and that's this one, which is now another popular one. Mm-hmm. Right. So same thing with this, and we are taking the initiative to return back to the local grocery stores, like Key Foods, Bravo Supermarket, Presidente, and then from there on to Publix and or Walmart from there.
Okay. So right now it's online.
It's online, yes.
Okay. And say that website again, King's Seasoning?
-seasoning.com.
Okay, awesome. I'll drop the link anyways. How about you, Jevaughn? Do you have a small business or?
So my wife is a travel agent. She owns her own travel agency, so she's directly licensed with AIDA, CLIA. She has the ability to book flights and hotels across the world. She accompanied a trip to Morocco and Portugal for 14 days, and I got to join her on that exhibition. So as far as small businesses are concerned, I also support small businesses as a commercial banker to small and medium-sized business. That's where I spent the last 22 years working with small business owners, being their trusted resource to understand what their financing needs are and how to make those needs, satisfy those needs, using the bank services and helping them to continue growing.
Well, I'm doing things backwards tonight. So with trying to coordinate the live, forgot to even introduce myself. My name is Donna Morton, and I am the president of Caribbean American Diaspora Alliance, president of Women of Culture Incorporated, where we support women, children, and families affected by homelessness, incarceration, and trauma. I am a real estate broker and life insurance broker, and military wife, Nana, just a community advocate, and just loving and celebrating our culture. And we're going to continue these conversations. We love that the men are joining us, and because it's not always easy to get men to like take time out, right? We usually have a lot of women on the show. So big ups to the men, big ups to the men. Happy Father's Day. All of the good things. I know, you guys don't always get the love and the all of that. I went to the store today and I saw for Father's Day they had stuff for the man to do work. Like, look at this shovel, all kind of no pampering. You guys don't do none of that pampering stuff, right?
Everybody
But
have
we
on all the grills for the men to go and grill for dinner.
no, we love you guys. You are appreciated. You are needed, and we appreciate you standing up. And I do have a mentorship also in Jamaica, schools. And so when I visit, I go back into the school and I'll definitely connect you. What I'm sure, if you're not connected, that's another awesome way for our youth in Jamaica, especially the young boys, to see gentlemen like yourself excelling. All right. All right,
Thank you.
everyone, be blessed. Thank you for joining
All
us
right.
again. Until next
Have a
time.
good night.
Blessed everyone.
Bye.
Have a good day. Take care.
Goodbye.